Oh, hell with it. I was going to have myself out after a workout or smoking a cigar or doing something else. But instead, I'm in this damn car again. I'm in the same parking lot and I'm doing the same stupid video format, by the way. Oh yeah, my old man bought me Just for Men. He quietly gave it to me at Christmas. We walked into his bedroom and I thought he was going to like tell me some sort of family secret or something like, hey, look, you're my only son. I'm getting up there in age. Yeah, you need to know this. Here's a family heirloom. Here's something with the Antonaccis that you didn't know. No, he just quietly handed me a thing of Just for Men and said, here you go. I didn't want to give it to you in front of other people. I didn't want them laughing or you think it was a joke. So he really wants me to dye my beard. I did it once and surprisingly I liked it. So anyways, this video is not brought to you by Just for Men and it's not about my beard. So, in my last video, I talked about Mike Madigan and one of the many manipulative tactics he would do to crack the whip and get his rank and file members in line. And that was pulling out the sheet of paper, putting it across his desk when people came in trying to ask him favors, especially during the budget, but not necessarily only during budget session. This next video, I guess I could almost say it's, oddly enough, is like in defense of Madigan. I worked for a Madigan campaign in 2010, and I have a pang of guilty conscience for this, in part because there wasn't much of a chance that he was going to be dethroned. The Republicans had a great year nationally. He had built a really good firewall. Again, he had been House Speaker since I was in diapers. I was born in August of '81. He has been House Speaker since January of '82. I'm sorry, January of '83. So anyways, that was in 2010. In 2016, I was the chairman of a super PAC for a committee that had a few wealthy donors. And this committee was trying to get the speaker dethroned in his own district. I knew it was a distant shot, but I wanted to go on the record and I wanted to publicly support it. The reason being, I think there's something about that British cliche. I won't say cliche, it's the wrong word. There's something great about our Anglo legal tradition. And maybe I am more of an Anglophile than a lot of Americans. The British have had some great philosophies throughout the years, and one of them is that absolute power corrupts, and that's what we had in Illinois. Mike Madigan was the chairman of the Democratic Party of Illinois. He was the Speaker of the House. He really had unchecked power, and you talk to people who are in the business of state politics, that's been an open secret. So I wanted to go out there. I wanted to try to land a few punches. I got to say, I loved knocking on doors in the speaker's district on the southwest side of Chicago and talking to real people and just getting them to, to talk to me at doors. And, we got 20-some% of the vote. Jason Gonzalez, when I say we, his campaign did. So, which I was chairing a super PAC that is a separate entity that has First Amendment rights, but it cannot coordinate with this campaign. So anyways, I wanted to see the speaker dethroned. I was, and whenever he was dethroned, I welcomed it. I do think he is a conservative Democrat in a state that is turning much more liberal, in a state that's becoming much more one party. So that has certain dynamics with it that may not be healthy for the state or for the Democratic Party of Illinois. But one man can't control so much that Madigan did. And Madigan was and may still be a megalomaniac. Everything I've read from the federal trial, from the federal transcripts, I have not found some massive crime that the speaker has committed. I got to know Mike McLean kind of well. Something else I'm leaving out in this video. 2010, I, for several months, my last semester of law school, I was on the speaker's technical review staff, basically their legal staff. I was not a licensed attorney then, and maybe I will check with an ethics attorney to see what I can and can't share about that office. But let's say I got to know a lot of people there. And one of the people I got to know was Mike McLean, who is a co-defendant in this Madigan trial. Mike McLean came off as a nice guy, came off as a stand-up guy. And that's a lot of the people that Madigan has surrounded himself with. So, anyways, I'm going on this big digression. I had some knowledge about it. I was a little bit involved. I think Madigan is so smart and so savvy. He knows everything that's being said about him. I mean, that was a big thing, was that he would want to know anything that's being put out there in the public domain. He would want to know it. He doesn't have an email address, does not have a device where you can trace him to the IP address. I don't even think he was that tech savvy, but he would have people around him showing him everything that's being written and said about him. That said, I'll just be frank. If what Madigan got convicted of as a crime is every corporate boardroom going to be a crime scene, this is effectively what they've said. They said, look, there were some of your people were sitting on boards. They were getting compensated very handsomely, and they weren't doing that much work, but they were on the board because they had connection to power. And by the way, I'm sure if somebody from the federal prosecutor's office was here and if they'd be allowed to speak, they would be saying other things and they would be much more eloquent. But that's effectively what I've seen. And then I have to ask the rhetorical question, hey man, that ain't every corporate board a crime scene. Because if you're going to be an influential corporate entity, you got to have people on there who are going to serve. You got to pay them well, and they have to have access to power. I haven't seen the accusations of quid pro quo. I don't think Mike Madigan was ever that stupid to say anything that would come that close to it. I think Madigan would use so many intermediaries, and he would be so vague in his wording that he would never say, yeah, you need to, put Bob Smith on your board, or else you're not going to get this piece of legislation passed next spring. Madigan would never say that. And there was nothing from the trial to suggest it. So, is Mike Madigan an asshole? Absolutely. Am I glad to see him dethroned? Absolutely. Does he deserve his comeuppance and all the people he has probably sent to jail? Does he deserve to go to jail because of this? You can make the argument, but I don't like the legal precedent this is setting. And I don't like how the federal prosecutor's office, okay, you brought charges against him earlier. You caused him to shift all his resources to his criminal defense. There was an opening. The door was open. The women's caucus were the ones with the real courage in the Democratic, in the House Democratic Conference. They were the ones who got Madigan out of there. But I don't like this idea that we can lock people up because they're able to put their friends on boards. And then those boards are very successful in the legislature. Maybe there's something in this trial that I'm not seeing. Again, I've just been reading like AP articles. I've just been reading news reports. I've not given a full dive into this. I see the jury probably had some conflicting feelings too, because they acquitted him on 22 of the 32 charges, 26 of the 36, something like that. So, or then if they didn't acquit him, they didn't convict him. So anyways, yeah, that's my 2 cents about the speaker. And again, I hardly see anything being written about this. This is kind of an open secret. Anybody who works in Illinois politics, could have said this about the speaker before. And I can't be the only one having these thoughts. I'm not. I've talked to other attorneys who've shared my views politically about Madigan being an asshole and how he shouldn't be in power. But, I don't like this idea of sending someone to jail. Was Madigan behind Blagojevich being made an example out of? Yeah, I think he has his fingers in it. He had his fingers in everything. Was Blagojevich an asshole? Absolutely. I don't think he should have gotten such a harsh sentence. I mean, this is, you look at what he was being accused of doing. I don't know if there's any truth in this. Now I am giving opinions where I may sound even more ignorant about it. I never heard until he did an appearance on Joe Rogan's podcast that his people were trying to get access to all of his phone conversations, and that the feds refused to hand it over and the courts never made them do that. I don't know if it's true. It's Rod Blagojevich saying it to Joe Rogan, so I'm not going to treat this like it's a good source. But if there is any truth in that there's like a 40-minute phone conversation and that the feds are taking, 30 seconds here and a minute here and 10 seconds here and not sharing the entire phone conversation with the defense, that to me seems like a pretty unfair system. You could take phone conversations I have in private with other attorneys or anyone else where we're talking about a bunch of shit, and you could take those conversations, and you could absolutely take a snippet here for 30 seconds, a snippet here for 20 seconds, and make it look like I'm colluding on a crime. But you're taking my words out of context. So, anyways, I digress. Speaker Madigan was not as brazen as Rod Blagojevich was, and they made an example out of Blagojevich. I hope they don't make an example out of Madigan. I don't know if what he did was a crime. And if what he did was a crime, I hope they give him probation or conditional discharge, or I don't want to see him locked up and go to prison. And very different, in the state of Illinois, so many of our political leaders go to prison. If Donald Trump was the governor of Illinois, he'd be in prison right now. He would absolutely be in prison. Some of the stuff that he's done brazenly and openly, we've had governors who've done a lot less stuff, who've had a lot more prison sentences. And I'm trying to think, in my lifetime, we've had Dan Walker, George Ryan, I guess Edgar did not go to prison, Ronner did not go to prison, Pat Quinn did not go to prison. I'm missing somebody else. George Ryan, Jim Thompson, Dan Walker, and Rod Blagojevich. So I don't think Dan Walker was during my lifetime. Yeah, I think he might have gotten sentenced before I was born. But in Illinois we have a unique tradition here about locking up our governors. I don't like that. I think that's more of a banana republic. That's not what mature democracies do. So Mike Madigan was, by all practical means, the emperor of Illinois. And he was the emperor of Illinois for decades. And he ruled with an iron fist. But he did not engage in thuggish, lawless behavior. And I don't feel good in seeing him go to jail. And I hope the court does not sentence him to jail.